Hello. If you work with watercolors, you know that you want to try to store them in an airtight area so they don't get dusty, and it's fine if they dry out. Watercolors are perfectly fine when they dry out. You just want to keep them clean so that when you rehydrate them on the next use that they don't have dust or grit in them. So this is a travel palette. It's got a nice latch on it so that it won't have things fall out, and it has an inner lid which is used for mixing things, and it's got 18 wells in there. So I really like the layout of this. It's got the inner areas for mixing, and the wells are on a slope so that you can easily pull watercolor colors out to be able to work with them. So you would use this with tubes of watercolor where you squish the tubes out into these wells. And also if you have dried watercolors lying around, you can put the dried watercolors into the wells, and then it's a way to store them, and then you can use them in the future because again, even though the watercolors dry out, they are still perfectly good. This isn't like acrylics or something else. With watercolors, you just add additional water, they get liquid again, and they are perfectly good. So with the seal, this closes up well. You can travel around with it, you can carry it onto places, and then you are all set. So really when you get one of these, then you choose your tube watercolors that you want and you put them out. And I like to put them out in the same order as in the tube, so if one of them runs out, I know which one to replace. So this is, in theory, a great watercolor palette, but let's take a look in practice. So I've been working with this watercolor case for quite a while now, and I really thought I would like it because it was perfectly laid out and I could label it and have the paints that I wanted to use for quick, easy watercolors on it. But this is what happens when I get to my destination. It's fine, of course, that they dry out. That's part of what watercolors do, and then you just rehydrate them. So the drying out part isn't the problem. The problem is that this lid does not actually seal the entire inside of the watercolor. All the watercolor things fall out. So unless you carry this perfectly flat and don't jostle it all, the watercolors end up mixing, and now you've got these little bits of different colors that you have to try to remember where they went. And you know, in some cases like blue versus red, it might be easy to put things back where they are, but in other cases where you've got like a couple different shades of yellow brown, it could be a lot harder. And plus, I mean, part of the reason you have something like this is so that each thing stays its own spot. So their design is poor, that the outside does seal with this seal so that they don't fall out of the container, but they fairly easily mix around inside the container, and that to me just makes it rough. So this could be used for me for a one location only where you put it on a shelf and take it off a shelf, but as a travel case, this is just not workable for me. Wanted to update with what I did to the case to make it a little more functional because I hate to throw anything away. I added this foam insert, and what I had found is that these ridges here would meet the top of it, so the paint wasn't falling out over those ridges here. It was the side ridges here, which are lower, that the paint was falling through. So I made a foam piece that blocks all of those, so when it closes, it seals with that foam, and that keeps each of the watercolor pieces in its spot. And that's the leftover mess from before I added the foam in there. So if you get one of these cases and you're going to use it for travel at all, I recommend making some sort of a foam insert to block those inner walls, and that way the paint can't get out through the inner wall and everything will stay where it belongs. So that is a solution for people.